Sean Strickland convincingly outstrikes Israel Adesanya for 5 rounds to claim the UFC middleweight championship, and here's how he did it. With no exaggeration intended, this performance from Sean Strickland may have been the best display of cage cutting I have ever seen. In previous fights, Sean has struggled to pressure and cut the cage against the bigger guy, Alex Pereira being the obvious example. But clearly Eric Nicksick and Strickland's team at Extreme Couture have been working on it. Instead of following Adesanya, Strickland cut him off. Notice the difference. Adesanya has shown susceptibility to getting the cage cut against him in the past, but you may be asking, why is this such a bad thing? Adesanya has shown he can be both evasive and dangerous against the cage. The problem is, when Adesanya is against the cage, it eliminates his most common and effective way of avoiding strikes, backing out of range. With that line of defense removed, Adesanya is forced to make one of 3 decisions. 1. Exchange. 2. Go left. 3. Go right. Once Sean had cut the cage and limited Adesanya's defensive options, Strickland decided 3 options was too many. For this segment, I want to play a clip from the phenomenal YouTuber MMAI. He posted a video before the fight about Sean Strickland's head coach, Eric Nicksick.
When asked about how Pereira needed to fight Israel, Nicksick had this to say. The main thing that he's really going to have to do is find smart ways to cut the cage off and try to put Izzy in the flat part of the panel and guide him into the 2 corner posts by eliminating some of Izzy's 45-degree backwards movements or his straight backs. It gives him only perpendicular movements to the right or the left. If you cut the door off on either side and say, hey, here's your exit, you know which way he's going to go, and it's either move that way or he has to shoot. So you either make him panic wrestle from there or you shut the door, show him the exit, and that's when you can set up some of those power shots and try to take his head off. I only read this after the first fight, and the prophetic predictions Nicksick made absolutely blew me away.
Nicksick knew the blueprint. If you cut the cage and give Adesanya a way out, he would take it, which will make him predictable, hence easier to hit. Sean would lead Adesanya perfectly to where he wanted him to go. Strickland would take subtle steps to his own left to give Adesanya that way out, circling him into his right hand. Although Sean didn't land too many big right hooks, this was still an effective and beautiful game plan from Team Strickland. I had noticed some of the teeps that Strickland was landing in this fight, but after reading an article on Patreon from the phenomenal writer Jack Slack, I was enlightened. I have linked his Patreon in the description of the video, and I cannot recommend it enough. I will give a shorter, less skilled summary of what he was talking about in the article, but if you want actually good content, join his Patreon. Jack Slack broke down how Strickland's teeps off both legs served him beautifully in so many ways. The lifting of the knee forced Adesanya to react, which would most often mean him backing out of range, which further enhanced Strickland's cage cutting. The second problem the teeps were causing was interrupting the kicking game of Adesanya. The lifted knees, which acted as teep feints, also served as defense against body and low kicks. And the final problem of the teeps is the most obvious. They were landing. These teeps were digging into the body and fatiguing Adesanya, who was already using tons of effort on the back foot for the entirety of the fight. Sean Strickland may have some of the ugliest defensive habits I have ever seen from a ranked UFC fighter, but they work. Sean Strickland maintains some of the best significant strike defense in the middleweight division. Although Pereira brutally exposed Sean's weird tendencies, no one else has been able to. Sean has developed this unorthodox way of defending strikes during tons of hard sparring rounds. I'm almost certain that Adesanya was getting reactions from feints that he liked and was looking to take advantage of those reactions. But it's almost as if Sean Strickland isn't even sure how he is going to defend a strike before he defends it. He kind of just forms into a defensive posture, which is aesthetically sickening, but just works. Adesanya couldn't even come close to establishing any effective offense directed towards the head of Strickland, landing an abysmal 14% of the shots he threw when targeting the head. In conclusion, the basic boxing, beautiful cage cutting, and weirdness of Sean Strickland won him this fight handedly. Similar to the Blachowicz fight, Adesanya, the master kickboxer with all the setups and feints in the book, got the reactions he wanted but could never find a way to meaningfully capitalize. And for that, all the credit goes to Team Strickland.